Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for watching today. Today is Thursday, July 7th, and today I'm going to talk to you about times of crisis and times of peace. And I'm not going to go into a whole worldly picture, but about your personal life when you're in times of crisis and when you're in times of peace, and the advantages and disadvantages of both. Example, when you're in a time of crisis, some people live to be in times of crisis. Do you know anybody like that? Are you like that? Like you're just always looking for something, like everything's a crisis because they need to be fixers. They're always fixers. And what happens sometimes with the time of crisis, sometimes there's a, even though it's a crisis, there's a time of clarity because you have to get out of that crisis. You have to go do things. There's things that the world or your life, or it's clear what you have to do to get out of that crisis. Do you know what I mean? Do you think of things in your life? You're like, this is happening in my life. Example: if you're in poor health, God forbid it's something very, very, very serious. I hope that never happens to anybody watching this, but it could. And people, there's usually a clear vision of what you have to do to get out of that. Usually, obviously, not going to debate about different ways of helping yourself health wise, but usually you go, I got to do this to correct this. And sometimes when people, example, they're out of money, they have no savings. What do? You got to get a job. You got to find a way to make money. I kind of think about this as I always use the comparison when a bear is chasing you. What's your ultimate reaction? I have to get away from this bear. And I use the example too sometimes is that you don't want to wait for a crisis to happen like a bear chasing you, because if you don't have a plan to get out of it, then your only plan is to run and you don't even know which way you're going. So in times of peace, where I meant by that is in times of peace where things are going well for you, these are the times that sometimes people feel uneasy. They're like, wow, everything's going well. What should I do? Should I change some things? Should I do some other things? Should I do something different? Should I change it? You can't even, some people, one quote my dad gave me many years ago, and always stuck with me, is that some people can't stand success. Always stuck with me. And what he meant by that, and what I mean by that, when some people can't stand success, some people can't stand peace. When you get to that point, you're like, I'm happy. Everything's going well. I'm doing the right things. Things are going well. And they just try to change things or do other things or look for problems because they don't feel comfortable there, because they're always been their whole life they've been fixing things. They're in crisis mode, and when things are going well, they start new crises up. It's kind of like if you ever talk to imagine a veteran, and anybody watching this is a veteran or knows a veteran. Thank you very much for your service. It's something I couldn't do myself. And I appreciate the people, the men and women that have and did and are, doing, in our military. But in times of war, sometimes the people in the military, they go for tours of duty, and they keep on going back, and they going back, and they go back, or they stay in the military for a career because they like those crises. They like to know exactly what they're doing. One of the things I learned as a broker years ago, I had some of my first recruits that came to my office were military people. I'm like, oh great, these people are going to be awesome. They're used to getting up in the morning. They're disciplined. They're disciplined. They're disciplined. They're disciplined. But I learned, and I actually researched this a little bit too, was that some people in the military can't do things on their own. They're not self-starters. They're disciplined, but someone's telling them and forcing them and making them do it. They can't do it themselves. So sometimes some people have and need that daily crisis that someone is telling them, you better do this or you're fired. That's kind of a crisis. Every day there's people that go to a job every day. They don't like it. They do it. But it's kind of a crisis when they're getting themselves out of bed every morning, because if they don't, they're going to get fired. Guess what? When you're in real estate, there isn't there is no fired unless you fire yourself or get out of the business. But that sometimes that lack of motivation or crisis can't handle that. So today I just really wanted to leave you with, where are you in your life? And when you're in a time of crisis in your life, your job is to get out of that crisis and find the simplest, easy way to you to get to that peace. And if you keep finding yourself always in a crisis, you got to really sit back and say, why am I always in a crisis? Is it something personally? Is it other people? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it your finances? Why is it always a crisis? And maybe think about, maybe you love to be in that crisis. You're addicted to being in a crisis mode because you know there's nothing else you have to figure out other than to get out of that crisis. And then when you're in peace mode, when things are going well and things are going the way you want it, don't find things to change and ruin that, but plan if there is a crisis. Like example, in real estate, all of a sudden your business slows down for whatever reason. The market goes down and you have to find new ways to market yourself. Sometimes in life things are happening in your personal life that stop you from doing as much work as you need, and then if your business slows down, where are you going to be? If most agents are living commission check to commission check. What happens if that deal that you were hoping and needed to close this month to pay the bills doesn't close? Where are you going to be? And so you don't get all the way back into bottom level, at the bottom crisis level, where everything else in your life falls apart, and that's the only thing you could plan on. So just like, it's a bad example, but just like in peacetime, sometimes we're building up to watching out, planning, so when there's not peacetime, what we're going to do and be on top of it. You got to do that in your own life too. I know that's not a great example. We don't like to think of those things, but that's what you have to do. You got to think of that. So there's pros and cons to being both, and you got to make sure you know where you are in either of those points in your life. So that's it for today. Hopefully it gave you something to think about. Remember, call, text, email me anytime. I'm happy to talk with you, put you on my schedule, and help you with anything that you need. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow on Friday. Bye-bye.